Welcome to Get the Facts, the show that gives you information on the latest topics. I'm Theodore Henry. You likely know that we have been in the hurricane season since the beginning of June and will be until November. You should also know that this season has been predicted to be a very active one. Here to tell us what that means and what we can do to prepare as best as possible is Mr. Rohan Brown, Manager of Weather Services at the Meteorological Service. Mr. Brown, welcome to Get the Facts.
Good to be here.
All right, let's jump into getting some facts. All right, so predicted to be a very active hurricane season. That wording is accurate, you're saying?
That is correct. And that is based on two primary factors.
Right.
The first factor is that we are transitioning from a El Nino to a La Nina in terms of climatic factors.
Okay.
And when you have a La Nina, you have more convective activity, you have weaker trade winds, you have less vertical wind shear, and those factors allow for the quick growth and development of tropical storms.
So break it down for me now. What does an active hurricane season look like? What should I expect?
All right, so in an active hurricane season, right, you expect anything above 14 named storms, of which 7 will be hurricanes and 3 major hurricanes.
Wow, okay.
Right, and so that is what an active season, or anything above that is what we consider an active season.
All right, so activity in this season doesn't really have, you can't say like it's going to come near Jamaica or anything. It's just a season overall.
It's a season and the likelihood of the development of systems within a season based on climatic and atmospheric conditions.
All right, got you. So you've given us the prediction in terms of number. Any prediction in terms of intensity?
Not at this time, but what we're expecting is just the general numbers, the development. So anywhere between 17 to 25 named storms, of which 8 to 13 could become hurricanes, and of course another 4 to 7 major hurricanes. So most of the predictions are in terms of the numbers, right? And in terms of the intensity, that is where you'd mention the major storms, because the major storms are category 3, 4, and 5.
Right. We're going to touch on that in a little bit, but before that, Jamaica land we love. Are there any areas topographically, geographically, that we can expect to be affected more, and why?
All right. So let's start. We're an island state, so and storms normally have broad spans. So a storm either passing directly over Jamaica or near Jamaica could affect the entire country, right? But if you're living in a low-lying and flood-prone area, if you live on a hillside, high elevations, if you're near the gully bank or waterways, those are, if you're located in those areas of concern. But because we are an island state, and because the span of those storms, anywhere in the island could be affected.
Oh, okay. But low-lying, well, let's do that again. Flood-prone areas, steep hillside areas, those
the high elevations where you have more. Okay, so in the structure of the storms, the higher you go up to about 850 millibars, or about 5,000 feet. The higher up you go, you have stronger winds as you go up. So if you're on the hillside, you're more likely to get stronger winds.
And the lower down you are, the more water you will get.
Exactly,
So
that is correct.
So I really need to be in about that. Okay, so you had mentioned categories. Give us a quick rundown of what the categories mean.
So for storms, they're normally categorized by the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale. And in that scale, you have numbers 1 to 5.
Okay.
And a category 1 is a storm or a hurricane that is anywhere between 119 kilometers per hour to 153 kilometers per hour. That is what you call a category 1 storm, right?
Okay.
And they're defined by their wind speed based on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale.
Right.
A category 2 is anywhere between 154 kilometers per hour to 177 kilometers per hour. How fast do you drive? You drive about 80 kilometers per hour? Don't answer.
I can't say that on camera, but yes.
Right. And then you have the major hurricanes, the Cat 3, 4, and 5. And the Cat 3 is anywhere between 178 kilometers per hour to around about 208 kilometers per hour. That's a Cat 3. A Cat 4 is anywhere between 209 kilometers to 251 kilometers per hour. And of course, a Cat 5 is anything above 252 kilometers per hour. And that is catastrophic. That is danger beyond compare.
Right. I won't even ask if there's anything beyond the Cat 5.
No. And scientists agree that, for the most part, are saying that it doesn't make sense to get a 6, 7, or 8 because a 5, a definition of a 5 is just catastrophic.
Have we ever witnessed a 5?
Not on the island, but systems would have moved over, and then after the past Jamaica, they became a Cat 5.
Okay. So, how does this season compare to previous seasons? Because we've been hearing active hurricane season, I think, for the last few years. Is this significantly more on par? What are the trends we're seeing? Okay,
so in terms of trends over the last 10 years, we have been seeing an increase in the number of storms year after year after year. Last year, 2023, was the 4th most active in terms of hurricanes. We had 20 named storms during that period. So there were active storms. The good news, and also not so good news, was that none of them affected Jamaica. A potential tropical storm did move over Jamaica late November, but we were not affected. But elsewhere, you would have had tropical storms. 20 named storms last year.
Wow, so we're not decreasing.
No. And the climatic factors like El Nino and the warm sea surface temperatures that are occurring are suggesting that you will be getting more numbers of storms as the years go by.
Wow. Okay, we're getting the facts, and we're talking to Rohan Brown of the Meteorological Service. When we come back, we'll talk about how best to prepare for a hurricane. Please, stay tuned.
Whatever you do, don't be this guy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your lifeguard speaking. For your safety and that of those around you, please listen carefully to what I'm going to say next. Whenever possible, swim at a beach with a lifeguard on duty or where signs indicate that swimming is safe. 2, this should probably be number 1, but learn how to swim. 3, stay in the designated swimming area. 4, read and follow all guidelines and never swim alone. 5, if you fall into difficulty, raise your hand in the air and call for help. 6, pay attention to local weather conditions and forecasts. 7, if you observe someone in distress, tell a lifeguard, or if you don't see one, phone 119 or 110 and request a Coast Guard. And before you swim off with this information, my friend Bernard has another tip for you.
Everywhere you go, and you see a fishing vessel like those small ones up there in the harbor, anywhere you go and see those small vessels, that's the safest area to swim.
Welcome back. We're talking hurricanes and a very active hurricane season with Rohan Brown, Manager of Weather Services at the Meteorological Service. Mr. Brown, let's keep talking about those hurricanes. Let's talk about the people level now. Now, how do I relate with a very active hurricane season? What should I do?
Preparation. So if you're hearing that it's going to be an active hurricane season, what are you going to do in order to prepare for that season? And so basic things, at the first part of the hurricane season or at the start of the hurricane season, there's some simple things you could do. Check your backyard, look at your trees. Do you need to trim those trees? Check your housing. Are your hurricane latches or in place?
Right.
You understand? Are the waterways, the gullies, the rivers, the banks near your housing, are the gullies clean? So those are some things that you can do at the start. But if you hear a hurricane watch is happening,
rush to the supermarket immediately.
Not yet, because a part of preparation is planning ahead.
Right.
So probably from far as January, you could be saying, when I'm buying my monthly or weekly stocks, I could save a tin of this,
Right.
a tin of that. Once it's non-perishable, so you could have been saving stuff all along, and you replace them. So if you save up to 10, and you say you have 10, say 10 tin corned beef, so to speak.
Right.
And when you reach 11, you could replace it with a newer one. So you could be building your stock as you go on. But also, there are some things you could do. Check. Do you have flashlights? Do you have batteries? There are some persons that you need to check on. The elderly.
Right.
Children, of course. What about women in their late or advanced stage of pregnancy? Those are individuals who need to be taking extra precaution during the hurricane season, or if they hear that a hurricane is coming. So
Right.
one of the first things we can do is to prepare. But most importantly, we need to listen to the bulletins from the Meteorological Service. And I stress that because anybody can say anything.
Right.
And the Met Service has the individuals with the training capacity, the knowledge, the technology in order to provide the most accurate forecast possible. And therefore, you need to be listening to the Met Service, whether it's on your radar, your television, your smart devices, but listen to the authority or source that you can trust.
Right, and if I could underline something that you mentioned, essentially it's take the rush out of preparation.
That is correct.
You know, so that's an important one.
So I don't need to be rushing to the supermarket because beforehand I would have been planning and preparing just in case there is a passage of a hurricane.
And there's a part of the plan that involves knowing what to do if. Right? That's important as well.
That is correct. That is correct. So, of course, you must know where your shelters are. What if you have to evacuate or leave? You must know where you're going. Am I going to my friend's house? Am I going to the shelter by the church? So those are things that you need to know as well. You know, you must have what we call a survival kit.
Right.
What if you need to be out of your house for a 3-day, a 2-day period? You must have a survival kit, a first aid kit, extra food, blanket, flashlight,
Understood.
just in case.
Understood. You mentioned listening to the authoritative voices, and I remember a few years back, there's a lot of breaking news coming out on social media in particular, and the Met Service was like, no. What are some of the, give me the top 2 misconceptions you've seen people have about hurricanes?
All right, so for example, I've heard, right, that because we're so God blessed, hurricanes will not come to Jamaica.
Mercy.
Right.
Yeah.
And although I'm a believer in the power of God, but there are instances in the Bible where you had the persons who were not prepared, like 5 virgins were wise and 5, or you build on a sand and not a solid rock. So
Right.
there are instances, right, that just in case you have a hurricane coming across Jamaica, like a Gilbert or a Sandy, are you prepared?
Right.
And sometimes we take the notion that we are God blessed and therefore we will not be affected. But what if? What do you do?
Right.
And also, persons always say, well, it's only winds.
It's only wind.
Yeah, it's
at
only
200
winds.
kilometers per hour.
But water can be a deadly killer.
Right.
Whether it's via storm surge, that is abnormal rising of the sea tides, or you have flooding. And that flooding event, you can have, say, about 200 millimeters of rainfall over a 3-hour period. That will cause significant flooding. So most times when people think hurricane, they're thinking wind. But the water hazard in terms of either flooding or storm surge can be deadly.
And the water can also degrade a construction as well, just the water from the sky.
Right,
without flooding.
and it can also, like secondary hazards like landslides can occur. So therefore, the water hazard itself is something that persons don't always think about. They think about the wind, but the water hazard is deadly.
All right, so it's more than wind, and preparation faith does not preclude preparation.
That is correct. You must be prepared.
So how should communities handle evacuations and sheltering during a hurricane?
So if the experts tell you that you need to evacuate, they must have done some analysis. They would have known that the risk factors of your particular location, and therefore a consensus would have been done for that evacuation order to be given.
It's not just somebody get up and say, leave your house.
No. So a number of entities would have come together, sat down, discuss it, and the end result is that based on where you are, you need to evacuate.
Right.
So if there's an evacuation order, you must know where you're going. Primarily it might be the shelter, or it might be a friend, a relative. But also, you must also make sure that your friend and your relative is in somewhere safe. And not necessarily in another risk area, so to speak. You understand? So therefore, again, we're going back to the preparation. What do you know before? So if you have that evacuation order, it means that an analysis has been done and you need to leave. If you're leaving, you need to have some stuff with you. You need to secure your documents, but you should have been doing that when you heard about the bulletin, whether it's a watch or a warning. So when the Met Service issue a watch or a warning, it means that you should be on the ready. You should be start doing these things because there is a strong possibility that you might be affected by a storm. So if you're asked to evacuate, the wisest thing to do is comply. Do so, but do so wisely.
And trigger the plan that was already prepared.
Excellent.
Sir Brown, we're in the last few seconds of this interview. The people are watching. You've given them so much. Give them your last words.
As I always said, people always talk about the numbers and the trends and the patterns. But the most important number is 1, because all it takes is the passage of one system near Jamaica or across Jamaica to cause significant damage, the loss of livelihood, and most importantly, the loss of life. So this hurricane season, be prepared. Start preparing and continue to be prepared.
All right. Be prepared and take the rush out of preparation as we discussed in the body of the interview. We want to thank Mr. Rohan Brown, the manager of weather services at the Meteorological Service, for taking the time to share with us. This has been Get the Facts, and I do hope you have a productive week. And I'm Theodore Henry. See you next time.